Greetings everyone, I'm William Strife and welcome to the Heads Up Podcast, Episode 4, April 21st, 2012. Okay, first order of business, a new episode of Elements of Play is up over on Machinima. Go ahead, check the video annotation or the description for a link, and this time around it's all about voice acting and how it affects games. No doubt my stance and what I say on the subject will be controversial. I'm kind of interested in what type of things are going to pop up in the comments this time around. But anyway, I figure I'll touch base with you guys on Skyrim guides and whatnot. I've been writing for the last week, and I've almost completed the second Skyrim script that I want to have before moving into production of any sort of a guide. I don't know how much longer it's going to take me to finish it, because it's really getting down to the point of making certain that I have details straight, and I'm really being pressed for time in the production side for Elements of Play, so it's a process, but I am making progress, which is really what's important. And on the note of writing guides, something that I've also found time for in the very scant free time that I have remaining, I've been writing guides for another game that I don't have to do any sort of research for. I don't know if those scripts will ever see the light of day though, but look forward to a series of guides if I ever actually get around to it. I figure there will be no fewer than 5 guides to this specific suite that I'm thinking of. Granted, like I said, I don't know that it's ever going to see the light of day. I might lose interest halfway through, but there is a chance that I'll finish it, and if that does happen, hey, more good content to watch, right? Anyway, I'm not really much for pushing advertising or anything, but I do want to point out b10g.net, my blog that I run. I try to update it on a fairly regular basis, at least 3 times a week. Make statements, tiny little blurbs, post some interesting information that you may not know about, so something more substantial than you would find in a Twitter feed. And I would really appreciate it if you guys would go ahead and check it out, leave a couple of comments over there if you feel like it. I feel like nobody pays attention to it or cares about it, and if that's the case, that's the case, but by all means I would like some of you to check it out if you have any interest in what I'm doing during the week. Anyways, enough of that. I'm going to start answering questions now, and this time around, instead of answering the questions that got the most votes first, I'm going to save those for last, and first couple of ones here I'm going to be kind of quick fire on them. They're just random questions that I chose out of the entire list. The first random question I chose is from Weedon the Gamer. Maybe that's Weedon, I don't know. He asks, how long is the Elements of Play series going to last? I'm not actually too certain of that. What I can tell you right now is that of the current season, beyond the episode that airs today, there are 3 more that will come. Those episodes are completely done, they're reported. I'm basically just sitting on them, waiting for the right time to upload and for them to go up on the network. As far as a second season goes, I don't know if Machinima is going to sign me for one. I figure that they will, but at the same time, I am already in production of Season 2. Basically, the way things work is that one season is 12 episodes long, and Machinima orders 6 episodes from me at a time. And I split one order into 2 production pieces, so I work on 3 episodes at a time. Right now, I'm closing in on completing the first 3 episodes of Season 2, and I'll move into the production of episodes 4 through 6 of Season 2 within a week or so. But as far as I know, 2 seasons seems likely to me. I don't know if it'll go into a 3rd season, though, because I'm having some trouble coming up with subjects and, thinking of games that really fit scenarios and whatnot. Simply put, if there's a Season 3 that comes along for Elements of Play, it means that I'm going to start changing up the way I write the scripts, the way that the show functions, and I'm going to make that a gradual process. Naturally, the more you perform a certain type of art, the more you learn about yourself, what you can do, how far you can push yourself, and when it comes to Elements of Play, I found that, basically the original formula that I came up with, that is finite. I cannot stick with that formula indefinitely, so things are going to have to change in the long run. But that's kind of getting ahead of myself and everything else. To answer the question, how long is the series going to last? Definitely through this season. It'll stop at episode 12, and then there'll probably be a 1-week break, maybe 2. I'm not certain how Machinima would want to work that. And after that, maybe there'll be a 2nd season. If there is, there will be another 12 episodes, bringing the grand total up to 24. But whether or not that 2nd season happens, there's no real way for me to be able to tell you. Okay, this next question comes from Special Edition. Do you have a Twitter account? No. No, I do not. I don't want one. I don't care for one. Twitter is something that I think only famous people need. And because I'm not famous in the way that a big-name movie actor is, I don't think I need a Twitter account. There's nothing interesting that I have to put on Twitter, and I just find it a waste of time. It's just my outlook. Sorry. Okay, the next question comes from Slug6199. He asks, what do you make of the Steam box that is rumored to be coming out as a new console? Fake. Completely fake. Not gonna happen. And there's a little bit of background information surrounding this subject. The reason why anybody started thinking that there was going to be a Steam console was because Valve had positions open for hardware development. Seeing as how Valve is a software company, suddenly finding out that they're looking for hardware engineers, obviously most people are going to think, oh, they're getting into the console business. It's actually come to light that that's not the case at all. Valve is actually going into research and development for heads-up displays in real life. Basically, something along the lines of you put on a pair of glasses or you put in a pair of contact lenses and you get the heads-up display that analyzes things in front of you. As a representative from Valve actually put it, Terminator vision. So, Steam box, it's completely fake. I mean, granted, not a big surprise that people started to look in that direction whenever they found out that Valve was looking into having hardware engineers, but like I said, complete misunderstanding, misconstrued. No, there is no Steam box, it's not coming. That being said, the research and development on real-life heads-up displays, definitely interesting. Not a whole lot more information available on that subject though, at least nothing beyond that's what they're doing. Alright, this next question comes from Wirewalker. I'm sorry, I don't know why I did that. But anyway, he says, kinda want to see the man behind the voice. I might follow up on that someday. I was helping a friend with a photo shoot not too long ago. He snapped a couple of pictures of me in the process. Yeah, I might include those in the next podcast. Depends on whether or not I can clean the photos up though. They're completely raw and the coloring is terrible. But anyway, moving on. Okay, this is the final random question that I chose to answer, which is from Zola Laxador. What do you think about Dishonored? The trailer was released recently, and you probably heard about it since it's published by Bethesda Softworks. Okay, the way I'm going to answer this question is basically split into two pieces. There's how I felt about this game because Bethesda was publishing it, and how I feel about this game now that I've actually seen something representing it. So basically the before and after feelings on the game, all centered around when they put out the trailer. And if you haven't seen the trailer yet, go ahead, look down in the description. I'll put a link down there so you can watch what was put out earlier this week. Basically, whenever I've heard from Bethesda that they were going to publish this game called Dishonored, I thought, oh great, another crappy game. Because even though Bethesda, their in-house development team, Bethesda Game Studios, does a really good job. They make really good games. Your Morrowind, your Oblivion, your Fallout, and your Skyrim. They're all great games. The problem is that Bethesda Softworks, as a publisher, they seem to have no skill for publishing good games developed by other people. If you just look back at some of the games that they have published, for instance, Rage, I found Rage to be a good game, but it did not do well. It was not very innovative. There was nothing new to it. It was just another first-person shooter, as pretty and as fluid as the game was. Then, of course, there are other games like Demon's Forge. That game was a complete and total bomb. It didn't work. It wasn't put together well. There's Wet. That game didn't do very well. The story was not written very well. The characters weren't very interesting. Ruby definitely wasn't a very good hero to be playing as. And then, of course, there's a Rogue Warrior, I think it was, and that game got pretty bad reviews too. And all of these games Bethesda did not make. Other people made them, but Bethesda published them. And just centered around that, I get this really solid feeling that, Bethesda doesn't know what on earth they are doing whenever they choose what titles to publish from other people. So, based on that track record, whenever I heard about Dishonored, I thought, who cares? Bethesda doesn't know what games are worth picking up to publish and what aren't. So that's how I thought about the game for a long time, and I didn't give a care about it in any way, shape, or form. Fast forward to sometime this past week when they put out the Dishonored trailer, and I'm just absolutely blown away. I'm amazed. And the reason is because any other games out there that have had as high quality of visuals in their announcement trailer as Dishonored have ended up being really good games, and I think that that's linked directly to the fact that the developers really, really care about their game. I mean, a good example would be Assassin's Creed 2, because first of all, the trailers are very similar in their general premise and how the main character is running around and jumping, but moreover, the visuals are just absolutely insane. You get these close-up looks at people and it's like, okay, yeah, that's fake, but wow, does that ever look good? And of course, whenever a developer of any kind is willing to pay another company to create a trailer that is that high of quality, I mean, that's not cheap. That is proof of commitment. And it's even more proof of how much they care about the game and its development if the developer made it themselves, such as what Blizzard does with their own personal cinematic studio. But the real short answer to your question, what do I think of Dishonored, is I didn't care about it until I saw this trailer. This trailer has completely put the game on the map for me. I'm going to be watching it from here on out, and hopefully it'll turn out to be a very fun game. Granted, it's still up in the air, no actual gameplay footage is out yet, so, we'll see where things go. Okay, now for the questions that ended up getting the most upvotes. This first one is from Muffin Munchins, and he asks, what are your expectations for Fallout 4 in story, weapons, NPCs, combat, and DLC? Okay, I'm not entirely certain what I expect out of Fallout 4, but there are a couple of things that I can think of. First of all, I get the feeling that the next Fallout could take place in Chicago. Don't ask me why, I just get the feeling that that's where it might take place. If not there, I have a feeling it'll stay on the East Coast, closer to where Bethesda knows things and the development, the way that the cities look. As far as story goes, I don't exactly know what it could encompass, but I do have a feeling that Bethesda's going to stay latched onto the concept that you're always going to be someone who's living in a vault and then has to go out into the wastes for one reason or another. As far as world design goes, I think that Bethesda is going to stick to their guns and go with the, dilapidated, destroyed type of world that's barely holding together that you saw in Fallout 3. I don't think that they're going to embrace the concept of a rebuilt society, basically because that's really where the appeal in Fallout 3 came from over New Vegas. That was the biggest thing that I had to overcome whenever I picked up New Vegas. It was the fact that I was no longer playing in a wasteland, I was playing in a world that was rebuilt after the apocalypse, which, that's not necessarily bad, it's just a completely different feeling from what Fallout 3 was. I think that the completely destroyed, anarchistic temperature of the world, I really feel that that's what pushed Fallout 3 to be such an incredible title. As far as weapons go, I have no earthly idea. I'm no gun nut or a fanatic or anything. If anything, I think that they'll kind of stick to the weapon layout that they had in Fallout 3, but now that Bethesda feels comfortable with the Fallout franchise as a whole, because, Fallout 3 was their first venture into using someone else's IP that they had gotten their hands on, I think that you're going to see more creative weapon designs, things that are more unusual. Probably far more energy weapons if I had to say anything, because, if you really look at the normal gun to energy weapon ratio, there were a whole lot fewer energy weapons in Fallout 3 than there were normal traditional guns. But that's as far as I think weapons are going to go. As far as the NPCs or all of the computer-controlled characters who live in the towns and run the shops and whatnot, I don't really think that there's much of anything to be said there, other than they better get their interaction with those characters a whole lot more fluid than they were in Fallout 3. Skyrim was a step up over what they did in Fallout 3, but it can still use a whole lot of improvement. I also hope to see that they have actual animations and transitions of people going through doors instead of walking up and activating a door and then fading out. There's a lot of stuff that can be improved, but if anything, I'd say as long as they can figure out how to get over that uncanny valley with NPCs whenever you talk to them, then I'll be happy. As far as combat goes, I think the natural evolution of it is going to be what you saw happen in Fallout New Vegas, basically continuing down that same path, turning the minute-to-minute controls of getting into combat whenever you're not using VATS. I mean, let's get something straight. VATS is here to stay. They're not getting rid of that. It was too cool. It was too successful. I mean, they even kind of ported the effect over into Skyrim, so VATS is here to stay. But the real-time combat, I think that, they're going to work on the controls a whole lot so it feels a whole lot more like you're playing a first-person shooter, but still you have all of those, stats and the numbers and the crunching going on in the background, and your gun skill still makes a really big difference on whether or not you're going to be able to shoot straight where the aiming reticle is pointing. The movement from firing from the hip to the iron sights, the reload animations. I just get a feeling that Bethesda is going to move Fallout in the direction of your real-time gameplay. It's going to feel like you're playing a first-person shooter that's been complicated by RPG elements. That's just my gut feeling about it. As far as DLC goes, I can't give you anything there because anything that I could speculate on DLC would have to be based off of what Fallout 4 is like, and because I'm speculating on Fallout 4 and know nothing about it, moreover, I don't know when Fallout 4 is going to come out. I don't even know if they're working on it yet, but I can't speculate on DLC at all. Okay, this next question comes from Wicked Gamer, and he says, I heard you mention Mass Effect, and I was curious what you think about the series and what game in the series you think is the best. Okay, first of all, in the last podcast, I didn't mention Mass Effect. At best, I alluded to it. But anyway, to answer your question, Mass Effect 2, easy, simple and straight. It's the best one out of the entire series. I really like it. As far as the ending of the Mass Effect series goes, I can't weigh in on that at all, and there's a very specific reason. I haven't played Mass Effect 3, and I don't know when I will play Mass Effect 3. It's not that I am disinterested in playing the game, it's more so for the fact that I have played the Mass Effect series through on the computer, because my computer is more than capable of running the game at maximum settings, and because BioWare, their roots are in PC development. The games always look phenomenally better, and they run phenomenally better on the PC than they ever do on any of the consoles. But the reason why I haven't played Mass Effect 3, and I don't know when I will, is because it's only available on EA's Origin. And for those of you who don't know, I hate EA, okay? I hate them with a passion because they use very bad business techniques. They basically throw their weight around just because they can. And the way that they're using Origin, which is their digital distribution engine for games, they're using it, their marketing technique is, we're not going to give you positive incentive to use Origin, we're going to give you negative incentive. In other words, you can't get our really, really good games unless you use Origin. And that's a marketing technique I don't agree with in any way. It's actually really gotten under my skin, and for that reason alone, I've chosen to stay away from Mass Effect because, just Origin. Ugh, I don't want to touch it. I don't like EA. I don't want to support their capitalism and the way that they step on other people. Don't get me wrong, I think that competition is good, and Steam, the major distribution system on the market, it needs competition, but at the same time, the way that EA has chosen to handle Origin and the way that they're pushing it to gamers, I don't agree with it, I don't like it, I don't want to support it for that reason. I really feel strongly about this. But getting back to the point, I think that the Mass Effect series is probably one of the best examples of sci-fi that we'll see in a long time. The whole starships and cruising around in space, meeting alien races and whatnot. I think that Mass Effect is probably one of, if not the best example of sci-fi in video games. That's highly debatable, but that's just my personal opinion. And I love the series up through the second game since that's all I've played. But yeah, Mass Effect, great series, love it. Mass Effect 2, my favorite. Don't know when I'll get around to Mass Effect 3. Okay, this next question comes from an Unsung Power, who asks, where do you think the next Elder Scrolls game is going to be? Okay, as far as the next province that the next Elder Scrolls game could take place in, which, obviously the Elder Scrolls 6 is a long ways off. It's anyone's guess how long it'll be until we see that. But I think that there are 3 primary locations where they could take the story next, if one particular thing remains unresolved between Skyrim and its DLC. And what I'm specifically referring to is the relationship between the Empire and the Aldmeri Dominion. Now, I won't get too into detail on this, but for those of you who didn't really pay a lot of attention or haven't played Skyrim at all, the Aldmeri Dominion is a governing body of elves, and more specifically, it's composed of High Elves or Altmers. And these individuals find themselves to be absolutely superior to every other race. If you're not elf, you're trash. I mean, that's one of the big things that Skyrim has going for it. It's the fact that it's started to bring in the concept of racism between man and mer. But anyway, if the relationship between the Empire and the Aldmeri Dominion still remains tenuous at best, there are 3 primary locations, I think, that the next Elder Scrolls game could take place. And the first one, and least likely I think it will take place, is Hammerfell. For those of you who don't know, Hammerfell was the province that the Elder Scrolls II Daggerfall took place in. The reason why I say that is because there's a lot of information in Skyrim that says there's a very large resistance group in Hammerfell that still fights the Aldmeri Dominion, and one of the big reasons for that is once the war between the Aldmeri Dominion and the Empire came to a close, the Empire had to cede pretty much all of Hammerfell to the Aldmeri Dominion. And obviously the Red Guards who live there didn't like the idea. Now, I don't think that the next Elder Scrolls game is going to take place in Hammerfell, even though it's a prime location, because it was used in the Elder Scrolls 2. And that's my sole reason alone. I don't think that they're going to revisit any province for a long time. But anyway, the second location that I think that it could take place in is Elsweyr, which is a desert to the south of Cyrodiil, and it's where the Khajiit, or the Cat People, come from. And the reason I say that is because the Khajiit are very strong allies with the Aldmeri Dominion, and the reason for that is because the Khajiit, their religion, is centered around celestial bodies, and more specifically the moons that you see in the sky. At some point in time, the moons in the sky vanished, and this sent, the Khajiit into an absolute frenzy. It freaked them out completely. And then all of a sudden, the Aldmeri Dominion comes along and they say, hey, we can fix this problem for you. All you have to do is be loyal to us. Basically, the Aldmeri Dominion made the moons reappear, and the Khajiit allied with them. So, whenever I found that out, I thought, well, it's obvious. The Aldmeri Dominion, they're pretty much made up of a bunch of haughty high elves who think that they're better than everybody else, and they practice some of the most ungodly magic out there, and they do a lot of stuff that they shouldn't. They probably made the moons disappear, and then walked into Elsweyr thinking, hey, we can make an alliance really easily by manipulating these idiots. So I can see a lot of strife popping up in Elsweyr, since that's probably what the Aldmeri Dominion did. That being said, I don't think that Elsweyr is the most prime location. I think it's a likely location. I don't think that it's the prime location. Finally, the last and number one place that I think that the next game will take place, if the relationship between the Aldmeri Dominion and the Empire stays tenuous, is Somerset Isle. And the reason I say that is because Somerset Isle is where the High Elves come from. It is the main base of operations for the Aldmeri Dominion. And really, if the Empire is ever going to, rise back to where it was at the end of Oblivion, at the end of the Third Age, something would have to happen in the Somerset Isle to basically throw the Aldmeri Dominion out of power. And who else could do that than, that unbelievably powerful, godlike character that you play as? And just the character you play as in Elder Scrolls games, you are just notorious for being able to wreak havoc on what the establishment wants, what they're trying to push, their agendas and everything, ripping it all to shreds. So I think that serves as a very good opportunity for story, for progression, for, just things being absolutely crazy different. And there's another reason for it, being the fact that having things take place, having a large game take place on an island is preferable, because you don't need to create an edge of the map. All you have is the sea out there. And as soon as you see the sea, well, great, it's the sea. What do I have to find? I'm just going to turn back around and look at the land again. There's a whole lot of appeal in having a free roam game occur on an island, because it gives you definable borders without having to create invisible walls. But that's the answer to the question for where the next Elder Scrolls game will take place, in my opinion. Least likely, Hammerfell. Second most likely, Elsewhere. Most likely, Somerset Isle. No clue if I'm right or not though, but that's my answer and those are my reasons. Alright, I think that this podcast has gone on long enough, so that's all the questions I'll answer for this week. But before I sign out, I want to cover one last thing. User Brad Wicked said, please make your top 10 list of games. I'll give you my top 10 list of games, but not this week. And the reason is because every single time I think I had the list down and that was it, I would remember another game that I just couldn't leave off the list, so I'm kind of back and forth on a couple of titles whether or not they should be left out or not, and I just think that I'm going to need a little bit more time to be absolutely certain about the games that I'm going to say, because I've got some pretty high standards, and I actually have criteria for all of the games to meet before I'll put them on that list. Basically put, whenever I give you the top 10 list, it's not just saying I really liked these games, I'm saying these are games that I will always take my time to go back and play, because they're just that good. I will drop everything to pick these games up and play them again because they're just that awesome. Okay? And for that exact reason, I am by all means suggesting that you, each and every one of you, look into the games that I bring up. But before I give the list, I want to make sure that I know for certain that I'm being honest with myself in the games that I put on that list. So just hold out for 1, maybe 2 more weeks. But until then, thanks for listening. This has been William Strife. I'll see you later.